I have married the same man 9 times. And my husband has also divorced me 9 times because of his first love. When we got divorced for the first time, I was so devastated that I threw all his luggage out of the house. When we got divorced for the 4th time, I pleaded with him to leave his luggage behind, fearing that he would never come back. When we got divorced for the 8th time, I had learned to pack his things obediently, for fear of making him angry. My breakdown, my pleading, my docility. In return, he kept his promise every time. And then there was the next divorce just like the previous ones. Until this time I packed my own luggage and left alone. But I didn't tell him. In a month, I will leave completely. We'll remarry in a month. Julian took the divorce agreement with ease and said words to comfort me. When I signed it, I felt nothing inside. And I didn't even have the desire to respond to his words. Julian frowned, seemingly dissatisfied with my silence, and repeated it. Oh, okay. I stopped packing my luggage and turned around to look at him helplessly. Julian is a man who keeps his promises. Every time we got divorced, he would tell me the time for our next remarriage. He only lied to me once. It was at our wedding when he held me in his arms and said affectionately, I will only love you from now on. Men who can talk sweetly are all liars. He seemed a bit surprised by my attitude. After all, in the past, after signing the agreement, I was always out of control and sobbed in front of him. Then I'll move out again this time. Julian was still choosing his words carefully. But I interrupted him. No need. I'll move out. My luggage is almost packed. There was a look of astonishment on the man's face. When we got divorced for the first time, I was so emotional that I threw all his luggage out of the house. When we got divorced for the 4th time, I pleaded with him to leave his luggage behind, fearing that he would never come back. When we got divorced for the 8th time, I had learned to pack his things obediently, for fear of making him angry. My breakdown, my pleading, my docility. In return, he kept his promise every time. And then there was the next divorce just like the previous ones. 3 days ago, the man gave me a gift. It wasn't expensive, but it was obvious that he had put some thought into it, because it was the style of necklace that I liked. I forced a smile. But my heart was filled with bitterness. In our married life, the man rarely gave me any sweetness. His occasional acts of kindness always foreshadowed the upcoming harm. That night, I couldn't fall asleep no matter what. I secretly checked his phone behind his back. At the top of his chat list was his first love, Luna. I'm coming back to the country. One sentence from his first love pronounced the death of my 9th marriage to Julian. When I clicked on another message, it was a conversation between Julian and his friend. Muma is really nice. Don't divorce her this time. Didn't you say you would forget Luna? Julian's reply was very concise. I tried, but I can't forget her. The dense pain in my heart during countless nights was finally relieved in that instant. I shook my head and pulled myself out of the memories. Under Julian's somewhat profound gaze, I finished packing my luggage. While carrying my luggage and walking out, I was also planning to leave the city completely. But then came Julian's somewhat formal reminder from behind. We'll remarry in a month. I didn't reply, just waved to show that I understood. What a coincidence. The plane ticket for my trip abroad was also bought for a month later. After moving out of Julian's house, I moved into the apartment left to me by my parents. Just like after every previous divorce, Julian didn't take the initiative to contact me even once. There were only 20 days left until my departure abroad. On this day, I was shopping in the mall with my best friend Isabella. She chattered and criticized Julian, and after a few minutes, she said carefully, I saw in my WeChat moments that Julian is traveling with Luna. I was silent. Then I remembered that every time we got divorced, I would, like self-torture, keep refreshing Julian and Luna's WeChat moments. Except this time. Seeing that I didn't speak, Isabella asked me with some pity, Did you two get divorced again? Among our friends, Isabella was the only one who knew that Julian and I had repeatedly divorced. Yeah. We got divorced. Isabella sighed and kept saying words to comfort me. I smiled and was about to tell her the news that I was going abroad. But before I could say it, unexpectedly, I met Julian at the entrance of a jewelry store. He called out to me instinctively. And Luna was holding his arm, greeting me with a gentle smile on her face. Are you here to look at jewelry too? She was really beautiful. No wonder she became Julian's first love. In the past, every time we met like this, I would stare at Luna intently, as if she were my enemy. Julian took a deep look at me and protected her behind him with half of his body. I stopped my impulsive best friend and replied with a smile. I've had some good news recently, so I'm buying myself some gifts. Isabella added fuel to the fire at the right time. Yeah, getting rid of a scumbag and coincidentally having someone else take him on. Isn't that good news? I pinched her with my hand, but I couldn't help but secretly agree in my heart. Julian opened his mouth, and seeing Isabella and me having a bit of a happy tussle, he finally didn't say anything. The shop assistant was clever and, seeing that we didn't get along well, called a colleague to serve us separately. Isabella secretly told me that when Julian was wandering around in the store, he would occasionally be distracted and look in our direction. I hummed in response, thinking that the man felt guilty. Sorry, ma'am. This style is already sold out. Isabella pointed at a clover necklace in the picture and wanted to buy it, but she was finally disappointed. My heart skipped a beat. That necklace style looked very familiar. It was exactly the one that Julian gave me 3 days before the divorce. In the past, every bit of kindness that Julian occasionally showed me was the most precious thing in my heart. But this time, I took out the necklace from my bag and handed it to her. Here, I'll give this to you. Just then, Julian and Luna were passing by us. Maybe it was an illusion, but I seemed to see the man turn his head several times, and take a few long looks at the necklace in Isabella's hand. Isabella still wanted to decline, but I stuffed it into her hand. After all, this was just a gift that someone used to compensate me, and it wasn't an important gift. The person who gave the gift was already my ex-husband. I thought that the encounter downstairs in the community this time would be the last time I saw Julian. But when there were only 10 days left until my departure, I told my boss that I was quitting my job. Then I took a somewhat melancholy walk in the community. But I was startled by a tall figure in the shadow of the trees. I was just about to scream in fright when my mouth was covered. It's me. Julian's face appeared. I broke free from his hand and took several steps back. He looked down at the hand from which I had broken free, with an indescribable expression. Why are you here? You didn't even say anything. I showed my impatience on my face. I was just passing by. Julian's eyes shifted. I originally wanted to give you a surprise. I was speechless. That made sense. If it were in the past, Julian coming to find me on his own initiative would have been a surprise that I could only pray to God for. Under the moonlight, the man looked at me with a somewhat confused look. I sighed and had the urge to tell him the truth. In the end, I held it back. I really didn't want any more complications. You should be with Luna instead of coming here. Don't let her misunderstand. I tried to persuade him kindly. What misunderstanding? I have a clean relationship with her. Julian told a lie. I tilted my head and looked at him, not exposing him. Whether your relationship is clean or not, I'm just an ex-wife after all. Even though we got married 9 times like it was a child's play, I was still an ex-wife. The scene fell silent. The wind was strong at night, as if it carried my words far away. After a long time, Julian raised his head and tried to explain. It was my fault to divorce you. But I can't let Luna bear the reputation of being a homewrecker. I took 2 steps back irritably. I couldn't understand, then I didn't want to understand either. Just because Luna couldn't bear the bad reputation, was I supposed to get divorced 9 times? Mr. Julian, the general manager, has thought it through. I have nothing to say. I lowered my head and refused to look into his eyes. Julian opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something more. Just then, his phone rang. It was a call from Luna. Looking at the name on his phone, I advised, "You should go be with her first. We can talk about our matters later." Julian looked at me several times, and finally walked away slowly and answered the phone. I went back to the apartment and closed the door tightly. It was as if I wanted to lock up what had just happened and everything that had happened in the past. All in the past. Time passed quickly. After finishing the work handover, the time for my departure abroad was getting closer and closer. Without a job and without Julian, I blocked my social circle in Yancheng, and my life seemed to be more comfortable. Only Isabella, who knew that I was going abroad, occasionally gossiped with me about the news in our circle. For example, after our encounter that day, Julian seemed to have had a big argument with Luna, and many friends in the circle went to try to reconcile them. Or that Luna once angrily scolded Julian at a banquet with red eyes, leaving the man standing in the corner in a daze for a long time. I listened quietly to all the news, feeling neither sad nor happy. In the past, the news of Julian and Luna's arguments was the signal for me to desperately beg Julian to remarry me in advance. But this time, I didn't even have the thought of opening the man's WeChat. Even when Isabella casually revealed that Julian had asked her about my recent situation. What surprised me even more was that Julian actually started to call me on his own initiative. And my repeated actions of hanging up on him made even Isabella, who was accompanying me for a spa, think it was cruel. Is it really like this with men? The more distant you are from them, the more they can't live without you? Isabella joked, and I kicked her with my leg. After the spa, Isabella and I had tea in a tea house. She couldn't help but let out a sigh. Actually, at first, Julian was really nice to you. My eyes were dazed as I thought of the past. When I met Julian, I was still in college. He was only 6 years older than me and was a close friend of my father despite their age difference. My parents went abroad to do business and entrusted me to his care. This man, who could influence everything in Yancheng, indulged me in every way at that time. When I sprained my ankle during the sports meet, he would rush onto the track and carry me away in public. When I failed an exam, he would scold me for being silly while picking up the textbook and tutoring me. When I was cheated out of 1,600 yuan of my internship salary, he used all his connections to bring down that company. I don't know which moment it was, but I fell in love with this man who treated me like his niece. I freely showed my dependence on him. Julian was used to spoiling me and didn't notice anything unusual until I officially confessed my love to him. The man's face turned gloomy and finally, it turned into a sigh. I already have someone I like. It was at that time that I learned about the existence of Luna, a woman who had a somewhat similar appearance to me. So a failed confession marked the beginning of my 9-year entanglement with him. In the middle of these years, Luna came back to the country, and they were in love, had arguments, fought, and broke up. One night, when I accompanied him, who was heartbroken over a breakup, and we got drunk, I stupidly confessed my love to him for the second time. He responded to me with a kiss and bound himself with marriage. Later, Luna came to Yancheng, and Julian proposed a divorce to me for the first time. Until the cycle of divorce, marriage, divorce again, and marriage again became so common that I was numbed by it. That's when I learned to change from hating Luna to hating Julian. If he only saw me as a substitute, why did he spoil me so much, even to the extent of making a vow at our wedding? If he ever loved me, why did he sting me with divorce after divorce? If there was no love left at all, then what were those repeated remarriages for? In fact, I should have understood long ago that the so-called bond of marriage was just a joke for him to be angry with Luna. Waking up from my memories, I stopped Isabella's chattering. I looked down at my phone. Tomorrow, I would be leaving. I felt a bit of joy in my heart. The so-called status of an ex-wife should preferably only last for these last 24 hours. After that, We would just be strangers. To prevent Julian from disturbing me, I simply moved out of the apartment in advance and went to a hotel. But I never expected that the one who called me first would be Luna. I had heard Luna's voice on Julian's phone before. It was gentle and soft. But this time her tone was a bit sinister. So you have such a vicious method. I took a deep breath. I had endured so much and compromised for so many years in her and Julian's story. I never expected to get such an evaluation. Aunt Luna, if you can't speak properly, you can own your mouth. I didn't hold back and simply played the role of a ruthless person. I don't know what method you used. But this time you did win a small victory. Luna ignored my sarcasm and her tone was a bit disappointed. Julian has married you 9 times, each time just to make me angry. My heart ached slightly. Yes, I knew that. But so what? As long as I come back, he will obediently divorce you. I thought it would be the same this time. But, She was silent for a while and then said something that I had been trying not to understand during this period. But I didn't expect that this time he actively quarreled with me many times. Men are really ridiculous. He said that he loves me the most. But he can't fool me. You, the substitute, finally got into his heart. I didn't believe Luna's words, but I just felt it was amazing that she was actually doubting herself. But I still couldn't help but mock her. So, are you scared? Luna's voice suddenly turned into a presumptuous laugh. Scared? I proposed marriage to him. Guess again. Did he agree to me this time? I sighed and hung up the phone. I had always known the position Luna held in Julian's heart. That year, when he carried me away on the track, I saw a snowflake tattoo on his neck. That year, when he tutored me, the textbook he took out had a pink cover with the letter L written on it. That year when he brought down that fraudulent company for me. The investment fund he used was called the JL Fund. He was present throughout my entire youth. But Luna was the shadow of his entire life. That night, even though I knew Julian wouldn't call, I still stared at my phone. Just like that, I sat on the sofa in the hotel and watched it all night. It should have been the day of our 10th marriage. But I was about to leave. At 7 in the morning, I took a taxi to the airport. Julian didn't send a WeChat message. I opened his WeChat ID and chose to delete it. At 8 in the morning, after going through the security check, Julian didn't call. I opened his number and added it to the blacklist. At 9 in the morning, I boarded the plane. I was deleting all the photos and messages related to him on my phone. My phone rang. It was a call from Isabella. I answered it. On the other end of the phone, it was actually Julian's voice, a bit panicked and with a hint of a sob. Emma, where are you? Isabella's angry scolding voice came from afar on the other end of the phone. Ma, it's not that I let him look for you. He came to my house and snatched my phone. If you don't get out now, I'll call the police for trespassing. I heard the sound of Isabella hitting him with her fist. She really put some strength into it. But the man just repeated that sentence, where are you? I took a deep breath, expelled all the negative emotions in my heart, and asked him in a calm voice that I had never expected to use. What's wrong? You're finally going to marry Luna and you're so touched that you're crying, right? When Julian heard this, his voice became urgent. And the sob was mixed with his panic and bewilderment. No, I didn't agree to marry her. Didn't we agree to remarry today? His tone gradually turned into a probe. I was stunned on the spot when I heard this. In the past few years with Julian, he had never been so submissive and pleading to me. He was the powerful general manager Julian and also an elder. He had always been proud and a pride in front of me. Even in those years when he loved me the most, he would only condescendingly reach out a warm hand to me. This was the first time that Julian had spoken to me in a crying and pleading tone. He knew exactly where my weak points were. In fact, he had always known what I wanted and how to give it to me. It was just that he didn't want to. Luna was the only pure and noble thing in his life, and only Luna was worthy of his occasional bowing his head. But after all, He was a proud man and couldn't keep bowing his head to Luna for a lifetime. Julian was just such a person. Was his current subservience to me because he had really lowered his head? Or was it just that he realized that I could also be out of control and he made a subconscious choice? I didn't want to ask for this answer. I just wanted to figure out how to say goodbye to him. After all, his answer was no longer important to me. I was just about to speak. But the friendly reminder from the flight attendant to turn off the phone saved me the trouble of organizing my words. Madam, the plane is about to take off. Please turn off your phone. I twitched the corners of my mouth. Julian, did you hear that? I'm leaving. Goodbye. Before Julian could speak, I hung up the phone, carried my luggage, and walked towards the boarding gate. After getting off the plane, I got a new phone number. I also changed all my social media accounts and only kept in touch with Isabella. My mom would get angry every day when she saw me lounging on the sofa and giggling at the mailitles on my phone. You should go out and take a walk. What's the point of staying at home all day? Haven't you had enough of staying at home during those years wasted with Julian? She pressed against my forehead, scolding me. But at the same time, she put a plate of cut fruits in front of me. I hugged my mother's waist and acted coquettously, saying, because I have you to love me. Mom, the reason I can go abroad with such peace of mind is precisely because you're here, Mom. My mother went abroad a few years ago due to her second marriage. Before leaving, what she worried about the most was me. She knew that my marriage with Julian was unstable, with countless breakups and reconciliations that never seemed to end. Many times, Mom advised me to let it go and not to pin all my hopes on one man, saying it wasn't worth it. Just like my father, who loved her so much when they were young, but in the end, they still ended up divorced. In life, which is just a few decades long, it's enough to have one passionate love affair. It's unrealistic and unnecessary to insist on having a long-lasting relationship with just one person. What's more, this man didn't want to have a long-term relationship with me either. At that time, I didn't understand what Mom meant. I always thought Julian was different. He seemed to fill the void of a father figure in my life, and gave me all the care that I had lost. But later I realized that all that care was just a means for Julian to mold me into Luna, a Luna whom he could love and who would listen to him. I was so immersed in the illusion that he loved me and I loved him that I even forgot that I was Emma and could only be Emma. Now that I'm away from Julian, I finally understand what Mom meant. Thinking of this, I hugged Mom even tighter and said, "Can I be your mama's girl for the rest of my life, Mom?" Mom rolled her eyes in mock disgust but still rubbed my head and said, "You." I knew Mom had agreed. However, just a few days into my leisurely life, Isabella called me and started by shouting, "I can't stand it anymore. Can Julian and Luna, these two crazy people, just leave me alone?" I was confused and asked her what was going on. Isabella told me that ever since I went abroad, Julian had been acting like a madman. He lived alone in the place where we used to live, neither eating nor going out. After observing him for a few days, a neighbor saw Julian faint on the balcony and in a panic, called the emergency number 120. After the emergency rescue, when they tried to contact his family members, they found that the only phone number in his phone was the one I had already abandoned. Since they couldn't get through to me, the emergency services contacted the police, and that's how they found Isabella. Isabella was Julian's only contact in China, so she couldn't avoid being summoned and had to go to the hospital to deal with the mess. Isabella didn't tell me all this because she didn't want me to worry about Julian's affairs anymore. She said, "He brought it upon himself. He drove you away and now he's pretending to be affectionate. What's the use of that?" Isabella always scolded Julian bluntly. But since she originally didn't plan to tell me these things and suddenly did, something else must have happened. "Oh, it's not a big deal." Isabella, who had just vented her anger, clearly didn't want to talk about it anymore. "You've finally been having so much fun abroad. Don't let these two crazy people ruin your good mood." Since it could drive Isabella to such a state, it definitely wasn't a small matter. I knew Isabella was trying to take care of my feelings. But I also didn't want my best friend to suffer because of my failed relationship. Isabella, what exactly happened? Isabella hesitated for a long time on the other end of the line and finally blurted out, "It's nothing much. Luna just came to my place and went crazy, demanding that I hand you over. She comes to knock on my door every morning, disturbing the neighbors. Now I have no choice but to stay in a hotel." Isabella actually had a home, but because of me, she couldn't go back. Feeling guilty, I said to Isabella, "Come to Zurich. Didn't you want to resign for a long time?" Isabella entrusted her house to a real estate agency for rental that same day, and also entrusted all matters, including Luna's harassment of the neighbors, to the agency for handling. Then she quickly applied for a visa and bought a plane ticket. A month later, we met at the airport in Zurich. When Mom saw Isabella, the smile on her face grew wider. "Now that you're here, take her out more often. She's been staying at home all day and is almost growing mushrooms." Isabella, who loved to have fun, readily agreed. But I still underestimated her speed. In less than 3 days, she was more familiar with the place than I was, even though I had been there for half a month. I don't know where she met so many Chinese people. Every day, she took me to all kinds of social gatherings in different ways. Before I could even remember everyone's faces, she was already calling them sisters. "Introduce some nice boys to our Emma so that she can get out of the shadow of her past relationship as soon as possible." Isabella actively introduced me to them, showing endless concern for me. Someone actually responded, "Then it has to be our Ethan. The two of them can heal each other's wounds, right?" "Ethan?" Following their words, a man walked out from behind the bar. Even in such a decadent and luxurious place, his casual suit didn't look frivolous. Instead, he seemed like a noble person who had accidentally wandered in, exuding an air of integrity from head to toe. "Stop making fun of me. I'm not heartbroken," but Ethan, as they called him, walked towards me. "However, I'd be happy to help a beautiful lady relieve her worries." When he said this, the crowd started to tease us, especially Isabella. But suddenly someone said, "Hey, I think this girl looks a bit like Luna." "Ethan, your taste hasn't changed." My heart tightened and I immediately turned cold. Isabella even stood up directly, holding a wine bottle ready to scold that person. But what really changed the atmosphere on the scene was Ethan. The man gave a cold glance at the person who spoke and said, "This is the 10th time I've explained this. I have nothing to do with Luna. Comparing this beautiful lady with Luna is really an insult." The man bowed to me and said, "To apologize to you, would you like to have a meal with me?" I could see the sincerity in the man's eyes. So I agreed. He told me his name was Ethan and that he went to the same school as Luna. "If I'm not mistaken, you're Julian's ex-wife?" Ethan carefully chose his words to address me and then explained the misunderstanding. "Every time Luna has a fight with Julian and goes abroad, she uses me as a shield. Anyway, I'm abroad and can't defend myself even if I try. I don't believe my explanations. They all think that I'm Luna's backup guy, but I really don't like her." He showed me the chat records between him and Luna. Starting from a few years ago, they were all Ethan's clear rejections. And Luna, on the other hand, used all kinds of pleading tones to ask him to act with her. When Ethan refused, Luna took advantage of the fact that he wasn't in the country and swindled people. As long as Julian believed it, that was all that mattered. So Julian would always call and harass him, and when their friends heard about it, they all thought Ethan was deeply hurt by Luna's love. The conversations from a few years ago didn't seem to be fake, and there were even email records from before I met Julian. Ethan had been Luna's shield even before I came into the picture. Of course, I didn't doubt the authenticity of these things, but I was just confused as to why Ethan would tell me all this. "Because I fell in love with you at first sight." I was stunned. Ethan, who was driving, turned his head to look at me. "Really, I'm not joking. The moment I saw you, I thought you were very special." He said that he had noticed me even before they started teasing us. including the previous few times. Every time I would sit quietly by the side without saying a word, but I was always really good at the games. I was both low-key and high-profile, and he couldn't figure me out, but I deeply attracted his attention. You're a girl with a lot of personality. Even after enduring so much under Julian in the past few years, your true nature hasn't been worn away. How could I not like you? From that day on, I started going on outings with Ethan regularly. Isabella scolded me for having a new love and forgetting the old one. I said, of course. Is there anything worth remembering about my ex-husband? After knowing Ethan for over a month, I almost forgot what Julian looked like. Not to mention caring about how he was doing back in China. Whether he's doing well or not, it would be best if he were dead. When Isabella heard this, she directly grabbed my neck and said, "Who asked you about Julian?" The old love she mentioned clearly referred to herself. I smiled and pushed her away from me, saying, "I'll give you attention later. We've made an appointment to feed the pigeons today." Isabella lay on the sofa and said, "The world is so cold-hearted," but even though she said that, she smiled and waved goodbye to me. She was the one who most hoped for my happiness. Now that I had a new life, she could go back to China and live her own life with peace of mind. Ethan gave Isabella a job offer and also arranged an employee dormitory, so that Isabella could avoid being harassed by Luna even after she went back. Isabella's eyes widened in surprise. I didn't expect her to be a rich second generation. I'm a self-made entrepreneur, thank you. This is my own company. Ethan, a person who had been living abroad for a long time, actually had his own company in China. And he could also avoid Julian's influence. I was really surprised at that time, but Ethan distracted me, so I never brought up this matter again. Ethan and I stayed in Zurich for over a year, and I finally confirmed that he was the one I wanted. On the day he proposed to me, we stood under the mistletoe at Christmas. To me, you are you, unique and irreplaceable. I took the initiative and gave him a kiss. Even if we can't be together for a lifetime, I'm willing to enjoy the happiness of this moment. Ethan knew what I was thinking. So he promised me, "Then I will keep you feeling fresh all the time." A year and a half after being with Ethan, I went back to our home country with him. It was mainly for his grandmother's birthday. Last year, due to a flight delay caused by a rainstorm, he couldn't go back. This year is her 90th birthday, and he definitely wanted to go back and offer his blessings in person. He took me along and said to me, "If the old lady knows that I've found such a beautiful granddaughter-in-law, she'll be over the moon." I smiled and pushed him away. But I couldn't help feeling a little nervous inside. Originally, I wanted to refuse to go with him. Before the rainstorm last year, he had already asked me. At that time, I hadn't completely let down my guard against him. It was until Luna came to Zurich to look for him. That day, I was watering the flowers at home. May friend girl I met at the social gathering secretly recorded a video and sent it to me. I thought Ethan would also deceive you, but he's really serious about you." Luna ran away crying. I've never seen her cry so pitifully. Ethan really loves you. The video was taken from a corner, hidden behind a viewing potted plant. And it was hard to see the people clearly. All I could hear was Ethan's voice. "Luna, do you really want to make me just like Emma and turn me into a toy in your relationship with Julian? Don't come to me again." My answer is the same every year. I'm not interested in you. Moreover, I'm getting married. My wife is very insecure. So please respect yourself. I stood there stunned. It took me a long time to reply to the foreign girl. Thank you. But the heart that had been put at ease then became nervous again now. What kind of person would Ethan's grandmother be? When I followed Ethan and drove to the villa area, I regretted it. This place was so magnificent that I couldn't afford to live in it even in several lifetimes. During those years with Julian, I had some experience of how the luxurious life was lived. But compared with Ethan's ancestral house, that was simply nothing. Whose decent family has a maid or maid of Huang Huali wood? Yet Ethan still looked as if he didn't know anything and asked me, "What's wrong with you?" I patted my disappointing little chest and said, "What? I'm choked by the rich air here." Ethan chuckled and soothed me, "Don't be nervous. Many relatives from the maternal side will come today. Most of them haven't been to the ancestral house either. Just follow me, and no one dares to laugh at you." Since he said so, I had to believe him for the time being. But I didn't expect that I would meet Julian at this moment. Ethan said that only people related to the Ethan family would be here today. Were Julian and Ethan actually from the same family? "Meh, you really came." There was a flattering smile on Julian's face, but after confirming my presence, there was a bit more satisfaction in his expression. He leaned in and tried to grab my hand, but I dodged. At that moment a hurt expression appeared on Ethan's face. "Emma, who told you I would come?" I frowned and moved away from him, not understanding what Julian was talking about. But after hearing what I said, Julian took a silent step back. Didn't you come here after seeing my message?" I was even more confused. "What message? Where did the message come from?" Just then, Ethan parked the car and walked over, putting his arm around my shoulder. When Julian saw Ethan, his expression suddenly changed. "Why are you with him?" "You too? Let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Mama." Ethan gave my shoulder a little squeeze, and the challenging look in his eyes when he looked at Julian was a bit childish. I gave him a nudge, and Ethan coaxed me and led me away. Only Julian was left standing there, stunned, hesitating to move forward. The birthday banquet was held in the ancestral house. Julian and I were far apart, and several times he tried to get close to me. But he was pushed away by the crowd at the banquet. Although it was a family banquet, the Ethan family had deep roots and a large number of branches and collateral lines. Together with their respective family members and relatives, there were about 100 people in total. I wasn't used to standing in this luxurious and vain social occasion, so Ethan found a quiet place for me to take a break. "Mama, even if you're angry, you can't be with Ethan. Do you know what kind of person he is? He's in love with Luna." Looking at Julian's anxious attempt to smear Ethan, I somehow just felt like laughing. "Do you think that I'm still the same as when I was with you, falling in love with him without knowing anything?" Hearing this, Julian opened his mouth to argue something. I raised my hand to block between him and me. "I can guess what you're going to say. But what does that have to do with you? This is my own business. I endured 9 divorces and remarriages with you. Don't you really naively think that I would endure you for a lifetime? I've already been married 9 times at such a young age. You have to let me have some new experiences, right?" Julian's expression became more and more interesting with every word I said. Finally, he suddenly laughed. "General Manager Ethan, you've heard it all. She just wants to play with you. You are of noble status. Please let her go." I was stunned and saw Ethan walking over from one side. He was holding a small cake in his hand and stuffed it into mine. Facing Julian, he said, "Well, but I'm willing to be played by her." Ethan blocked me and looked at me with eyes still full of sweet love. "Grandma wants to see you. Shall we go now?" After all, in the past, after signing the divorce agreement, I was always out of control and sobbed in front of him. Julian looked at the backs of Ethan and me as we left, and finally lowered his eyes to hide the sadness in his eyes. He knew that the words I said were from the bottom of my heart. He also knew that the words Ethan said to me were sincere. There were no more secrets between Ethan and me. After talking with Grandma that day, we said goodbye. After that, we didn't go back to Zurich either. Ethan took over the Ethan family's business in the country and got busy. He told me that he was sent abroad by the Ethan family because he had been reluctant to get married for a long time, so that they could avoid seeing him and be at peace. Now that I was by his side, he could naturally go home and inherit the family property. I asked Ethan in surprise, "You're not using me as a tool to inherit the family property, are you?" Ethan was so scared that he immediately refused Grandma's urging for marriage on the spot. So he was thrown out of the country overnight, and I stayed by Grandma's side to keep her company. Let that kid go and play by himself. Nim will stay with me. Only then did I know that he was originally responsible for expanding the market abroad. He made up such a story because he wanted to stay in the country with me. Looking at the kind old lady, I said, okay. Later, I met Julian several times. Even though I wasn't married to Ethan yet, I was known as Mrs. Ethan throughout the city, which was the opposite of those years when I was married to Julian. It was another year's family banquet. I stood on the terrace and looked at Julian in the banquet hall. He was standing alone against the wall. With none of his former glory left, only loneliness remaining. Ethan came over and draped a thin shawl over me. Don't stand here. It's cold at night. What if you catch a cold? I tugged at the shawl and walked back into the room, saying perfunctorily, okay, okay. You're like an old woman. The first snow of early winter was falling outside the window and landed on Julian's shoulders as he walked out of the banquet hall. But there would be no more snow falling on my shoulders.